Hi. Well, today I haven't actually done anything on my business so far, and the reason is I've been writing a quite technical letter to my MP, which I think is quite important. But anyway, so just to say a bit more about the business, and I'm intending this to be a daily vlog. Whether it will be or not, I don't know, but that's my intention. And I'll just say a bit more about what George, my friend George, was saying as to why he thinks I won't get anywhere. Because one of the central points he was making is that I quite enjoy the doing process, but without kind of finally following through to make something happen to get money in my account from a business. And there's a very significant amount of truth to what he was saying there, because that was certainly true before and for quite a long time, and I recognised that. And so I had some therapy to find out what the reason was. And the thing about that is that if there's a pattern to your behaviour, you are the problem, essentially. There's also, in real practical terms, a limit to the degree to which you can be your own therapist. So sometimes you just need to get someone else's help, someone who's a professional, to find out, why am I not achieving these goals I want to achieve that I should be capable of achieving. You may find that, for example, something you get certain so far with the project, and then something else distracts you, some other shiny bauble, and you start doing something else instead before you completed the first thing. And then before you finish the next thing, you go on to something else. And that's actually not a particularly uncommon pattern, I know. But there'll be some kind of reason for it. So it's worth investigating. So that's what I did. I also want to say, actually, that I think it's really important to recognise that you may need to be more flexible than perhaps you'd previously anticipated about finding solutions. Because, for example, if you went to the doctor to get a referral to an NHS therapist and said, I'm only earning 30,000 a year and I really should be earning 200,000, the doctor is likely to laugh at you and say, that's not a problem that I would deal with. Get out of my office, there are people who've got real problems waiting to see me. But let's say an NLP practitioner is more likely to say, okay, let's find out why you're not earning what you think you're capable of and try and solve the problem. So if you're trying to improve your own life, you may have to be more flexible than perhaps you've been used to being about how you're going to solve the problem. And the other point to make is that if you've been trying the same approach for a particular period of time and you're not really changing anything, not making any significant changes, then perhaps you need to try a bigger approach, a different approach. Either a different therapist, or if that's not working, a whole different approach, one you may previously have dismissed. My experience is that quite often a lot of people, they will only allow a solution to their issue to be in a very narrow range of possibilities. And this is none more so, I think, than when it comes to medicine as well. Physiological things, because for example, a friend of mine was going to have a transplant for something, and I said, what exactly is the condition? And I looked it up in a book I've got, and it basically said it was caused by a particular psychological state that had existed, and the symptoms that he was now describing were part of the recovery from that state. They were interpreted as being a problem in their own right. And this particular book said that if you treat them in this particular way, you can usually avoid the necessity for transplant. So I told him this, and then he said, "Oh, but the doctor says blah blah blah." So he ended up having the transplant, which didn't go particularly well. But, you know, people make their choices, and I've learnt to regard people making choices that they're making within their own self-imposed narrow range as being essentially kind of survival of the fittest. Those that choose things that work better may survive better than those that don't. So anyway, so I think it's really important to work on yourself and not accept limitations. And I know one thing that's made a really big difference to me in my life, and that is that from quite a young age I had a belief that things could always change for the better, or there was always a way to make things change for the better, even if I didn't necessarily know what it was yet. And that has enabled me to keep an open mind much more so than other people, and it's enabled me to find solutions to challenges that I otherwise wouldn't have if I'd just gone along with what other people think. So that has really made a huge difference. It might even have saved my life, actually. So that's a very useful belief. And a lot of people don't seem to have that. They have a very limited model of the world. And I know you may know him, Tony Robbins, who's this tall American guy. He was a hypnotist in Shallow Hal, if you've seen that film. And he said during one of his seminars I was at that, I think it was the first one actually he did in the UK, he said most people would rather die than change their beliefs. And I thought, oh no, he can't be right about that. Several years later I think, oh yeah, he's right about that. So if you're not succeeding in business, because this is really what this is about, I suggest strongly you consider yourself to be, well, the problem, but also the solution. But you may need help finding it, because there's a limit to the degree to which you can be your own therapist. Okay, you just need someone else sometimes to see things, who's trained at these kind of stuff, that can see what you can't see with their questioning, because you're seeing the world through your own filters that are part of the problem. So, what George was saying was correct in that historically I've had a track record of not following through and completing projects. And so what this one is, it's like the first one I'm doing since having some therapy to deal with that particular obstacle. So that's why I'm keen to make sure it all happens. So, in terms of the business itself, what I'm looking to create is an online business that at least has a degree of being what I would call passive income. That is, where I don't have to, where it is possible to find customers, sell them the product, take the money, deliver the product, without having to be involved in every single transaction. So whether you've got a process that happens automatically. Okay, that's quite important. There may be other things that are more individual that I get involved in, but I want that at least to be part of it. So we're talking about delivering digital products, for example, and some stuff that I may have written myself. And this is a lovely sunset here in Upper Sundon, by the way. So, the first thing I'm looking at is creating a product about asylum, applying for asylum, because I've helped a few people with that and I'm very good at it. And many people just don't know where to look for advice even. So that's my first thing. Now, one of my objectives is not only having things relatively low maintenance, but also low costs of maintenance. Because I don't mind buying something, but I don't like renting things, because it doesn't take that long before you've ended up paying much more in rental than what you could have paid for something outright. It's like buying a washing machine from Bright House, for example. It doesn't take long before you spent far more money on it than if you paid for it on your credit card, for example. So I'm looking where I can to either buy things outright with a one-off fee, or one-off fee with maybe a small annual charge or something, or that I can use for free to keep the monthly costs down. And one of the reasons for that is because on The Apprentice in the UK, Alan Sugar, well, the first episode is usually about keeping costs under control. And so he penalises people for spending all of their budget rather than trying to minimise the costs of what they actually need for that particular task. And there's a reason for that, because anything you spend comes directly off your bottom line. So that's where I'm at. Might get some more done later. I'm also going to take a fairly careful planning approach to this. But overall, it's going to be ready, fire, aim, because one of the mistakes you can make, and this is also a common thing, is trying to get everything too perfect. There's no such thing as perfect when you're doing anything to please other people, really, or if it's anything creative, because some people will like this, some people will like that. There's no such thing as perfect. So I'm just going to get something ready, sell it, and then improve it, and with feedback and so on like that. That's just a sensible way to proceed. I'm not hung up anymore on what other people think of what I've done, although nice feedback is always good, but constructive feedback is useful. But I'm not terrified of bad feedback, so if some people say, yeah, shit, I don't care, because I know that I've put some work into it and it won't be shit. So that's probably enough for today. Just going to stroll up to the railway bridge over the railway and have a look at the trains. And I hope you found this useful, and I'll let you know when I've taken some more steps. Okay, see you for today. And you know how the subscribe button works, so maybe see you tomorrow.